Have you ever wondered why the strongest men you meet are always the quietest in the room? They don't tell you how much money they make. They don't list their accomplishments. They don't need to remind you who they are, because they already know. And they're not performing for anyone, especially not for women. That's the part that stings, isn't it? When you've spent years believing that if you showed her your worth, if you just tried hard enough, proved yourself enough, sacrificed enough, she'd finally see you, finally love you, finally stop pulling away. But she didn't. In fact, the harder you tried, the colder she got. That moment when you did everything right, everything they say a good man should do, and she still left, or cheated, or lost interest. That's the fracture. That's where the cracks begin to show in everything you were taught. Because it's not about proving anything to her. It's about proving it to yourself, then realizing you never had to prove it at all. Let me take you into the mind of a strong man. Not the loud one. Not the alpha cosplay. Not the Instagram bravado. I mean real strength. The kind that doesn't flinch when she gives him the silent treatment. The kind that doesn't chase when she threatens to leave. The kind that walks away when his peace is disturbed, not his ego. You ever been in that position where she pulls back, emotionally or physically, and something in you panics? You start wondering what you did wrong. You send the extra text. You ask if she's okay. You replay every conversation in your head. You start performing. You become a version of yourself that bends toward her validation, begging for the warmth she once gave freely. But what if I told you that's exactly what she's testing? See, many women consciously or not withdraw affection as a power move. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's just instinctual. They want to see if you'll collapse, if your confidence was real or if it depended on her response. And the moment you chase, you confirm it, you're not grounded. You're not anchored, you're reactive. You're hers to control. And don't get it twisted, that doesn't make her evil. It just means she's tuned into emotional dynamics more than you are. And if you haven't studied the battlefield, you're already losing. You need to see how this plays out in the real world. Let's say she suddenly becomes cold, replies with one-word answers, doesn't initiate anymore. You feel it. The shift. The distance. Most men start overgiving at this point. They buy gifts, plan trips, send walls of text trying to communicate. They over-explain, over-apologize, over-invest, trying to solve a problem that isn't actually a problem. It's a power test. A strong man doesn't play that game. He feels the withdrawal, and he withdraws even further. Not out of revenge, but because he's not emotionally dependent on someone who can't meet him with presence. His worth isn't tied to whether or not she responds that night. He doesn't punish her. He doesn't beg her. He simply matches the energy, then redirects his focus back to himself. And it drives her insane. Why? Because that reaction, or rather, that lack of reaction, signals something terrifying to her subconscious. He doesn't need me to feel whole. He is whole. That's what separates men who command respect from men who chase scraps of attention like starving dogs. You've been taught that proving yourself is noble, that suffering for love is romantic, that loyalty means tolerating disrespect. But none of that builds strength. None of that makes you a man she wants to stay with. What if, instead, you said nothing? What if, instead of proving, you observed? What if you took that discomfort, that anxious energy, and transmuted it into presence, focus, discipline? Let her wonder. Let her feel your absence. If she comes back with clarity. If she doesn't, you were never going to be safe in that space anyway. And here's the truth you've been running from. When you stop trying to prove yourself, you finally see who's still standing beside you. And more importantly, who was only there because you were performing. So now I'll ask you, have you ever tried to fix a situation by giving more only to lose yourself in the process? What's the moment you realized you were doing everything and still getting nothing back? When was the last time you felt the panic of losing her, and what did you do about it? You've been taught to chase, to explain yourself, to keep her interested by constantly adjusting who you are. Every time she pulls back, you feel that itch, that anxiety in your chest that says, if I don't fix this now, I'll lose her. And so you react. You give. You apologize even when you didn't do anything wrong. You soften your voice, reduce your opinions, silence your instincts. You become manageable, appealing, safe. But in doing that, you become invisible. You see, women don't lose respect for you because you're too soft. They lose respect because you abandon yourself to please them. And that's the part no one tells you. That the moment she sees you hesitate to protect your own boundaries to preserve your own reality, she no longer feels the same safety in your presence. Not because you're cruel or cold, but because you're not rooted. You're shape-shifting for approval. You're proving instead of observing. And she can feel it. A woman doesn't need a man who proves himself. She needs a man who already knows who he is. And you don't get there by being agreeable. You get there by resisting the urge to earn what should be freely given, by refusing to perform when her interest wavers. Because here's the pattern you haven't noticed yet when you pull back your energy from someone who only responds to attention. They panic. Not because they miss you, but because they're losing control. A man who doesn't react is terrifying to someone who feeds on reassurance. He breaks the cycle. He introduces uncertainty. And in modern dating, uncertainty is the currency. Most women aren't consciously manipulating you, but many of them, influenced by social media, attention economies, and subconscious fear of intimacy, have learned how to maintain control through emotional imbalance. One moment she's warm, the next she's cold. One day she says she loves you, the next she needs space. It's the push and pull dynamic, and if you fall into it, you're not in a relationship, you're in a performance loop. What do you do when she gives you less? Most men give more. They rationalize it. They say she's tired, she's stressed, she's confused. They make excuses, trying to buy time, hoping the old version of her will return. But she won't. Not while you're begging. Not while you're signaling that her half effort is enough to keep you spinning. A woman cannot respect a man who respects himself less than she does. And that's where the inner war begins. The strong man, the one who feels no need to prove himself, acts differently. He notices the shift, he feels the tension, but instead of overcorrecting, he becomes still. He doesn't flood her with reassurance. He doesn't ask for clarity that's already obvious in her silence. He doesn't dramatize it. He just watches. And in that space, she sees something most women rarely encounter: a man who can walk away from her without collapsing. A man who values peace over validation. A man who doesn't trade his dignity for crumbs of affection. That's not arrogance, that's self-respect. And it's earned, not faked. You earn it by sitting through the discomfort of not being chosen. You earn it by looking at the phone and not texting first. By not reacting to her stories. By watching her detach and choosing not to chase. Because when you choose not to react, you reclaim something sacred, your center. Let me give you a real example. There was a man, let's call him Daniel, who'd been dating a woman for 6 months. In the beginning, everything flowed. Affection, time, effort. But slowly, her patterns changed. She stopped initiating, her tone turned transactional. Her compliments disappeared. Daniel felt it immediately. The old version of himself would have doubled down. Flowers, dinners, emotional check-ins. Instead, he stopped. Not coldly, not with malice. He just matched her energy. He responded when she reached out, but didn't chase. He maintained his gym sessions, his projects, his sleep. She noticed. Within a week, she sent a message at midnight. Are we okay? That message wasn't just a check-in, it was a reaction to the shift in power. Daniel didn't need to prove anything. He didn't lecture, he didn't punish. He just made it clear his energy isn't up for negotiation. She could rise to meet him or drift away. Either way, he remained centered. You need to understand how powerful that is. To not flinch, to not spiral, to not lose yourself at the first sign of withdrawal. That's what creates gravity. Not charm, not money, not six-pack abs. Stillness, self-respect. The absence of emotional hunger. You stop proving yourself the moment you realize your presence is a gift, not a request. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you didn't respond right away? How often do you catch yourself trying to re-spark her interest, even when she's already checked out? What would happen if you simply didn't? There's a brutal truth most men never want to admit deep down. You're terrified of being alone. Not because you can't survive by yourself, but because you've linked your self-worth to how desirable you are. Somewhere along the way, you started believing that being chosen by a woman validates you as a man. So you put yourself in her hands. Her mood dictates yours. Her silence makes you spiral. Her approval becomes your mirror. And that's exactly why you keep getting hurt. You keep walking into relationships not as a whole man, but as a question asking her to answer it. Do you love me? Do you still want me? Am I enough? You might not say it with words, but your actions scream it. You compromise what matters to you. You let things slide that once would have broken your principles. You become softer in your convictions, gentler with your truth. And she can feel the weight of that uncertainty. Women are more emotionally attuned than you think. She knows when your strength is a mask. She knows when your confidence collapses under pressure. She knows when you're addicted to her approval, and she will test that. She will withhold affection. She will flirt with emotional distance. She will start a pointless argument, not because she enjoys conflict, but because she wants to know, can this man hold frame? Or will he fold? Most men fold. They raise their voice. They apologize for things they didn't do. They ask, what can I do to fix this? They negotiate with the silence. They fight for peace. Not realizing peace doesn't come from her. It comes from your willingness to walk away if you must. You think winning her back is strength, but real strength is watching her drift away and not chasing. That's when she sees you differently. That's when she realizes you're not like the rest. Because when you stop performing, when you stop being a mirror for her emotions, when you stop letting her behavior control your internal state, you become a mystery. And that mystery is magnetic. Let's talk tactics. When she gets distant, do nothing. Let her miss your presence. Let her feel the absence of your attention. Don't play the game of I'll post this to make her jealous, or I'll leave her on read to punish her. That's ego. That's immaturity. You don't engage in games because you're not competing. You've already won. You're not attached. If she reaches out again, you don't reward it instantly. You respond when it fits into your life. Not to be cruel, but to remind yourself that you are not reactive to breadcrumbs. You're building a standard. You're not the kind of man who dances at every ping of a notification. That's how boundaries form. Not through ultimatums, not through dramatic conversations, through consistent behavior that says I will not lower myself to win someone who can't meet me halfway. And what if she doesn't come back? What if she ghosted you? What if she found someone else? Then she did you a favor. She showed you who she was before you got in too deep, and you can finally break the addiction to her potential. Most men are in love with potential, with the memory of how she used to be, the early days, the affection, the way she looked at you when everything was new. And so you stay, hoping it'll come back, hoping that version of her was the real one. But here's the truth. The version of her you have today is the only version that exists. You don't date a woman's past. You date her current behavior, her current values, her current respect for you. So stop clinging to the echo of who she was. Start seeing what she's actually showing you. And maybe more importantly, start noticing what you're showing yourself. Because every time you lower your standards just to keep her around, you teach yourself that you're not worth what you truly want. You teach yourself that her comfort matters more than your dignity. And one day, you'll wake up next to a woman who doesn't even love you, wondering why you feel so small, so invisible, so tired. That's the cost of proving yourself. That's the slow death of self-worth. But it doesn't have to stay that way. You can choose to reclaim your energy. You can choose to stop explaining, stop convincing, stop negotiating. You can stop asking, "What did I do wrong?" and start asking, "Why am I staying with someone who makes me question my value?" So now tell me, have you ever stayed in a relationship just because you were afraid to start over? What's the most painful thing you've tolerated just to keep her from leaving? And what do you think it cost you? There's a moment every man remembers, even if he doesn't talk about it. That one night, that one argument, that one slow, aching realization she no longer respects you. Not fully. Not in the way that makes her look at you like a man she could follow. Not with the softness. Not with the awe. Not with the admiration that used to be in her eyes. And the worst part isn't even that it's gone. It's that you saw it slipping for weeks. And you did nothing. Or worse, you did everything. You tried to win her back. You talked more. You opened up more. You became more emotionally available, thinking vulnerability would fix the disconnect. And when that didn't work, you got angry. You blamed her. You said things like, "Why can't you just love me the way I love you?" And she couldn't answer because she didn't know how to explain it. Respect doesn't leave with logic. It leaves with subtle shifts in how you show up as a man. You stop leading. You start pleading. You stop being decisive. You start waiting for her signals before making a move. You stop living in your center. You start orbiting around her mood. And once she feels that you are now more focused on not losing her than on living your truth, the game is over. You've traded power for permission. Understand this, a woman cannot love a man she doesn't respect. And she cannot respect a man who abandons his mission just to maintain her affection. That's not romance. That's emotional submission. And every time you choose comfort over principle, you drift further from the man you were supposed to become. So what does the strong man do instead? He doesn't fight for love. He fights for clarity. And when clarity reveals that his presence is being devalued, he walks. Not with bitterness, not with grand speeches, just quiet, final movement. Because strong men don't stay where they are tolerated. They don't negotiate with someone's confusion. They don't build a future with a woman who's half in. They don't ask for more affection. They command it with presence, direction, and stillness. And if that presence is met with emotional games, withdrawal, or manipulation, they leave. It sounds cold, doesn't it? But it's not. It's clean. It's simple. It's adult. And that's what most men are missing, the courage to be clean with their standards. To say, "I'm not angry with you. I just know what I need. And this isn't it." But you can't say that if you're still proving yourself. If you're still in that little boy state of, "Please choose me." That's why most men stay too long, because they don't believe they'll find someone else. Or worse, they don't believe they'll ever feel worthy unless she validates it. Let me give you something practical. If you're in a relationship right now and you feel the balance is off, ask yourself this. Are you initiating 90% of the conversations Are you constantly wondering where you stand? Do you find yourself adjusting your behavior to not upset her more than being yourself? If the answer is yes, then you're not in a relationship. You're in a silent performance, auditioning for a role you already earned. And the longer you play that part, the more she forgets who you actually are. Women do not fall in love with men who beg. They fall in love with men who breathe, who move through life with direction, with a calm refusal to be emotionally pulled off course. And when she tests, and she will, she's not trying to hurt you. She's trying to feel your spine. So give her one. When she gives attitude, don't match it, redirect it, or disengage. When she withdraws affection, don't chase, observe. When she uses silence as punishment, don't panic, fill the silence with your own peace. You don't fight for her attention. You fight to remain in your center. Because if she sees that nothing she does can pull you off your mission, she has a choice: rise to meet you or fall away. Either outcome protects you. And what happens when you master this? You stop dating women who drain you. You stop proving yourself to women who don't deserve you. You start attracting women who feel safe in your presence because they know you won't collapse. You won't lose yourself in them. You won't perform. You'll simply exist whole, still, and firm in your truth. That's what draws the right woman in. Not your effort, not your sweetness, your solidity. So ask yourself this: what part of you are you shrinking just to keep her interested? When was the last time you actually enforced a boundary without explaining it? And are you willing to lose her in order to find yourself again? There comes a time when you don't care if she stays, not out of bitterness, but because you finally understand your value isn't up for negotiation. You stop measuring yourself through her warmth. You stop seeing her attention as a reward. You stop interpreting her silence as your failure. You start watching the dynamic with new eyes, and you realize most of what you called love was just a response to being noticed. That's why strong men don't flinch. It's not that they don't feel, it's that they've been through the chaos, the confusion, the games, and they've made a choice. I will not sacrifice my clarity for connection. You don't need her to understand you anymore. You don't need her to agree. You don't need closure. The closure was in the moment she hesitated to choose you fully. The closure was in the moment you realized you were the only one putting in the emotional work. The closure was the silence and how long you tolerated it. Because when a man truly values himself, he doesn't chase explanations. He doesn't drown in her mixed signals. He simply watches. And when the time comes, he disappears. Without the need to be right. Without the need to be missed. Without the need to be validated. That's power. And with that power comes peace. See, there's a stillness that arrives after you stop trying to be liked. After you stop trying to be the good guy. After you stop proving. It's the moment you wake up and realize the version of you that kept trying to earn love was never the version she loved in the first place. She was drawn to the version of you who didn't care whether she approved, the one who made decisions without second guessing, the one who had a schedule, a mission, a spine, and somewhere along the line, you gave it all up to become what you thought she needed. And the irony, she never asked you to. You gave her the power, thinking it would make her feel safe. It didn't. You softened your truth, thinking it would make you more lovable. It didn't. You waited for her to decide how the relationship would go. She lost attraction because no woman wants to lead. She wants to be led by someone who doesn't need her to lead him first. So where does that leave you? It leaves you with a choice. Stay in the game. Keep chasing. Keep proving. Keep breaking your own rules every time she pulls away, hoping she'll come back and love you like she did in the beginning. Or stop. Stop needing her affection to feel enough. Stop needing her attention to feel alive. Stop needing anything from someone who's already shown you that your emotional security is not her priority. Start building a world so rich, so full, so rooted in purpose that the moment someone threatens your peace, your answer is silence, not anger, not desperation, not pain, just distance. And that's the part that stings the most for them when you stop arguing, when you stop explaining, when you stop reacting, because now they have no more control, no more buttons to press, no more strings to pull, and for the first time, they feel what you felt, uncertainty. But you're not doing it to hurt them. You're doing it to protect the man you fought so hard to become, the man who walks away from disrespect, not because it hurts, but because it's beneath him, the man who doesn't need closure because his silence is closure, the man who no longer begs for love because he is love grounded, masculine, whole. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect. And now, there's nothing left to say.